Yo, what's up, Bulldogs? All right. I'm really excited today because it's no lie. You see it in the title, but I have Michele here who actually did beat David Goggins. I know a lot of you guys know that I've been a big fan, and I was an ultra runner myself for a year.
Oh,
Last year I did
wonderful.
ultra running. Yeah. So I'm super excited to have you here. Maybe for the guys that haven't been following this sport as much, if you could give a little bit of your background,
Yeah,
and we'll jump into some of the details too. But yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thanks. First of all, thank you for having me, John. It's great to connect. Well, my name is Michele Graglia. I was actually born and raised in Italy. So actually, moved to the States when I was about 24 years old. At the time, I was working in a family business in the floral industry. So I was in a completely different world, and decided to come, overseas to kind of, I would say, improve my English and kind of live a new experience and perhaps expand the business. So I was just open to live a new experience more than anything. And then by chance, right the very first week when I landed in South Beach, I was still looking for apartments, and that fateful day happened that I got scouted by a modeling agent, and my life changed completely. She offered me a contract right on the spot, and I went from being a salesperson, a flower salesperson, to be living this completely different lifestyle, and I got thrown into this whole new industry. And at the beginning, you can imagine, I was 24, 25 years old, landed in Miami, coming from a small town in Italy. you know, it was pretty different.
yeah,
Work started rolling in, started rolling with, in the social life. And you can imagine how crazy it can get down there. And so, for a brief moment, I kind of lost track of myself, of my values, got involved with everything that comes with that lifestyle, uh, alcohol, drugs, and partying all the time. So you can imagine you're that young, you feel like the king of the world. Everything is handed to you, everything is given, everything, everybody wants you. So it's exciting, it's absolutely thrilling, but it came a time where that kind of started fading away, just because I came to recognize the fact that that career, as much as it was fulfilling on a financial level, was absolutely dragging me down. At that point, I decided to leave Miami. I moved to New York, hoping to give it, to find more purpose, to push for, higher, bigger clients, like the high fashion world. And that didn't help. I kind of disconnected from the whole, partying scene and all of that, but that didn't happen. And so even if I found myself at the top of my career, because at that moment, I'm talking about 2009, 2010, I was really hitting it right. I was traveling overseas, Milan, Paris, Miami, New York. I was all over. But despite that success, let's call it that way, I felt absolutely miserable.
yeah, yeah,
And that's when you hit the bottom, and then you find yourself, you have to pick yourself back up. And that's when I discovered ultra running by chance, reading a book by Dean Karnazes, The Ultra Marathon Man.
yeah,
And that book absolutely not only changed my life, but I often say it saved it.
yeah,
I came to a very critical point where I was absolutely dissatisfied with who I was, what I was doing, who I was becoming, and all of that. And so he kind of lit a spark again in me. He opened up he opened up my eyes to a whole new world that I didn't know existed, ultra running. I mean, we all knew, or at least we all know marathons, but not too many people at the time at least knew what ultra running was. And so finding out that we are, as humans, we're capable to push ourselves so much further than what I thought it was possible. It
yeah,
was so inspiring. It was like a breath of fresh air. And at that point, I was committed to, to give it a try.
Yeah. Wow. So that's quite the change. I mean, to go from that, especially the partying and the drugs and everything, and then to go into, I mean, when you're running an ultra, your life is training, right? I mean, it's
That's
like, I
right.
mean,
Yeah, it's a completely different,
yeah,
complete switch. But that's I think that was probably. Well, actually, it wasn't probably. It was most likely suggested by the necessity to change.
yeah,
I feel like there's a lot of people that just keep grinding it out and just keep sticking to whatever career just because they give them a good, a good salary or whatever, good money, good securities, good this, good that. But inside, you're miserable. And oftentimes we don't have the courage to pick ourselves up and make a change, because change is always difficult. But, I was at such a critical point that it was a matter of life and death for me. And so I invested everything I could to, inspired by Dean Karnazes, because he showed me the way, in a sense that, even though we came from completely different lifestyles and careers, he was a successful businessman. I came from fashion, which have nothing to do with each other, but
right.
the level of understanding that we reached, he was in his I think about 30 years old when he had that epiphany. I was about 27. And so we were pretty close at that point, having reached that success, the financial success, that, somewhat of notoriety in what we're doing. But despite that, we weren't happy. And so knowing that I could make that change because he did it. So if he did it, so could I.
Yeah.
And so with that belief, I invested everything I could. And, fast forward 10 years later, we're here talking.
Yeah. Wow. That's it's incredible. It's so, and I love that, just because I think so many people that like subscribe to my channel, I hear it all the time because I get emails. They're like, they think it's too late for them, that they can't change their life around. And it's like, your life could be so different in 5 years, in 10 years, it could be completely unrecognizable. It's amazing to see that. And here you are, someone who, like, you're at the top of your game in one industry, at the modeling, and now you're at the top, at a totally different thing, a completely different thing. And, people train their whole lives to run, but, if you put in that dedication, it's crazy to just show that how much of it is the mindset, is what you choose, and not, I mean, obviously you have some genetic ability for sure, but so much of it is the mindset that people don't realize, I think.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think this resonates with a lot of people, and this is pretty much what I was just saying. We just tend to stick to what we know just because we fear that we are not good enough, smart enough. We don't have enough. We're not capable enough to achieve whatever dream we have, bigger dream. Because I know, when we grow up, we all have bigger dreams. We want to be like, I don't know, Formula One pilots, soccer players, football players, basketball players, astronauts, whatever you want to be. But then we settle for what's convenient and what's comfortable and what give us the safest route to achieve whatever we feel like, we want to achieve in our lives. But I think it is necessary to break the mold and change that, to make that change and believe that we are all capable of a lot more than what we think we can. And, I think that ultimately that change is just, just knowing that you can do it. It just sets you on a path towards that. So it's really about the beginning of the journey, understanding that you can do it. And this is where for me began, understanding that Dean did it. He did it. Why couldn't I? And so from that point on, again, it was a matter of just, clocking in and day out, and just do everything that I could to be in this position.
And let's talk a little bit about I mean, it's not like you just became an ultra runner, like you became the ultra runner, right? It's like, I mean, like, well, I mean, it took some time, but your recent, I mean, you did, I believe you won the Badwater, right?
Yeah,
right,
2018. Yeah.
which is like one of the toughest races. I mean, that's
Oh man, that was
insane,
a crowning
right?
dream, I gotta tell you.
That's got to be insane. How did it feel to run? I've always been interested in running that race, but I've been thinking like it just feels insane to try and do that. How was it? Did you like how did you prepare? What did it feel like to
Well,
be there?
yeah, well, right out of the gate, Badwater always represented the ultra race in my mind.
Mm,
More than I'm very much fascinated with all of the big ones of Western States, Hard Rock. We have a bunch of very famous, iconic races, but Badwater,
yeah.
Badwater just always represented something beyond. Even my understanding of what's possible, because here we're talking about not just 100 miles, we're talking about 135, and then we're talking about temperatures that reach 125, 130 degrees. When we
That's
started in 2018 at 11 p.m. at night, it was 124.
oh my god.
So I mean,
That's insane.
it's like it's a world on its own down
Yeah.
in that valley. And so I initially signed up for Badwater in 2016. So that was the first time I took part of the race. I went in with great hopes and great expectations. And, one thing I learned in ultras is the outcome is never given. Doesn't matter anything, doesn't matter preparation. You have to be, everything has to click. That first attempt didn't go too well. I have suffered immensely. I had, lots of issues of, due to dehydration and overheating. My kidneys were failing. I passed out countless times. I was just passing out, getting back on my feet. I literally crawled
Wow.
for 10, 15 hours. I am proud to say I made it to the finish line, but far behind my goal. And so in 2018, I was, fortunate enough to be able to give it another go. And that day, fortunately, everything clicked, I guess. And very proud to say I brought home the big W.
Wow, that's just insane. Especially so 2 years before, so in 2016, that was the first time.
Yeah.
And where did you place in the rankings, or what was your time? I guess.
Well, I finished in 34 hours, and I finished top 25.
Okay. So it was still
So
a
it was
decent finish,
okay.
right?
It was okay, but
Yeah.
when I race, I kind of know what I can do,
Right.
and if I don't hit that, I'm not satisfied.
Right. Yeah.
I know what, I don't want to say like I know my potential, but you know what I mean. I know what I can do in a certain scenario, in a certain distance, and all of that. And I knew that 34 hours was way far from my target. And so in 2018, I finished in 24 hours.
Wow. That's
So I
insane.
dropped 10 hours out of it. That's yeah. That's quite a bit.
No, I bet no one saw that coming either, right? I mean, I bet they didn't expect you, who'd finish in the top 25 to suddenly come in first and take the race there.
Yeah.
So that's crazy.
Yeah, I think that's another fascinating part of ultra running. It's about the personal experience out there.
Yeah.
And that one can change dramatically from one occasion to the other, one experience to the next. And so, my goal going into the race is really not about competition. I really don't focus about who's there, what am I going to place, because that's oftentimes is out of my control. I cannot control how you train, how you're dealing with the race day, the challenges that arise and all of that. But what I can do is bring the focus within and do the best that I can. And so if I don't give the best that I can, then I'm not satisfied. Then I need to do it again. And that's when, I was fortunate enough to do it. And again, I'm going back this year because I know I can do better.
Wow. Okay. Wow. That's awesome. And then you also recently won the Moab 240, right?
That's right. Yeah. Last fall.
Yeah. That's insane. I mean, that's 240 miles. That's insane. I can't believe that. That's, I mean, that's like, it just blows my mind that's
who invented
possible,
that?
right? So, okay. So tell me, yeah. So tell me about that. Had you ever run that distance before? Like anywhere close to that distance? Was that like, did you think you had a chance at winning this? Like, how did you feel coming into that race?
Yeah, well, the longest race I've run before was 175 miles.
Okay.
This was a race in Italy called Ultra Milano Sanremo, which goes from the city of Milano to Sanremo, which is close to the French border, which is actually the town where I was born. Fun fact.
Nice. Yeah.
So that was 175 miles, but it was mostly roads. And so it was a much faster, not much elevation. So it was a much faster, experience. The Moab was a completely different one, just because here we're talking about 65 miles more, which is over 100K more. And desert terrain, mountain terrain, sands, rocky trails, it was a very, a much bigger challenge. So I am constantly drawn to, pushing the envelope, pushing, the boundary. And so the Moab represented the new staple. When I first started ultra running, the 100 milers represented that, unfathomable target. Again, I grew up in Italy with a very strong influence from the Greek mythology and the classical Greece. So, that marathon being the ultimate challenge for the human's body and spirit always resonated with me. So now understanding that I can do 8, 9, 10 marathons in a row with no sleep, it just blows my mind.
Yeah.
And so going into I go with a sense of, exploration, almost a sense of adventure, because I'm literally, pushing my boundary towards the unknown territory, unknown experience, unknown feelings. I never ran more than 30 hours straight. Here we're talking about 60.
Yeah.
So it's about doubling down on what you already perceived as the ultimate limit. So here is, and this is, I guess, what fascinates me the most in ultra running. It's about keep on setting a higher, it's about raising the bar.
Yeah.
It's about raising the bar for what's possible as humans, not just as me as possible, because then, we transcend those limitations and understand that all of us are capable of extraordinary things. So this is just fantastic, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's just crazy. It blows my mind. I got a super chat here from Unique 79. It says, "Salute Bulldog mindset." I'm gonna let you read the Italian. I learned a little bit of Italian, but I can't.
Siete un'ispirazione per tante persone. John. Yep. It says you're an inspiration for many people.
And then thank you both, like and subscribe. So yeah, thank you. But yeah, so okay, so here's one thing I was wondering about too. It's like, okay, so back to like the bad water. When you ran that in 24 hours, what's the pace that you're running on average?
Well,
and what are you trying to stay? Like, what's your strategy? Are you trying to stay at pace, or
Yeah, well, usually I try not to think about pace too much. And I hate to look at the clock and the watch and the pace and the effort and all of that. I try to bring the focus within and just constantly feel myself. Mm-hmm. So I gotta stay, the idea of ultra running to me is breaking into a very comfortable, like fast pace that still keeps me at an aerobic level.
Right. Okay.
So I go on aerobic level as fast as I can without breaking into the anaerobic.
Right.
Because the anaerobic, then it becomes, you start pushing a bit too hard, and oftentimes, and you cannot sustain it for a prolonged period of time. You can only be sustained for, an hour, 2 or 3 or 4. But after that, you start dying out, and it's really hard to turn things around after that. Just because you depleted so much your body, and you strained your body too much. So the idea, again, to me, the secret is to go as fast as you can in aerobic level and just keep that pace for as long as you can. Initially, of course, we're talking about, I believe at the beginning of the bad water, we were starting about 6:30, maybe 7:30, between 6:30 and 7:30 minute mile. So, you do the first marathon usually around 3 hours, around something like that. So it's pretty, it's not super fast, but it's not slow either. And then, there you have other challenges that are not just the heat, but it's also the elevation. Because for instance, you have the very first big climb comes at about 40, 45 miles into the race, and you have over 5,000 feet in about 15 miles.
Okay, yeah.
And then you have a big descent back into the desert floor in the other valley, and then you have another 5,000 feet in another 12, 13 miles. Then you have another long way through the desert, and when you reach Lone Pine, you have 122 miles in your legs. And at that point, you say you only have half a marathon to go, but you have over 5,500 feet to reach the finish line at the portal of Mount Whitney. So the pace in those uphills, of course, drops drastically. And of course, you can pick it up a little bit on the down, but again, it's about the consistency of a constant forward movement. That's the idea to me. Just do the best that you can in any given moment. So again, stressing about pace has very little to any meaning or value, because you could be going 8 minute mile and mile 100. Actually, you might be going, the other way around. You might be going 12, 13, 14 minute mile and mile 98, 100. And then 5-10 miles later, you have this, incredible feelings that come, and you might drop 7-8 minute mile, no problem. So ultra running is very much a journey of highs and lows. Yeah. It's almost like riding a roller coaster. You run ultra marathons, you know what I'm talking about. You go from debilitating lows to exhilarating highs. And it's understanding that you can make it through the lows, gathering your strength, resetting, you can climb out of the lows and live incredible highs. When you live those highs, it's like you feel superhuman. You feel like a hero. You can break through walls. And those are the moments I think we all live for. Those are moments you feel like a hero. Nothing can stop you. But then know that the hard time is coming again. So there's an understanding to that.
Yeah, I think that's why it's so addicting too. It's like, and I like what you said about constantly raising the bar, because for a long time, I just ran 5K 3 times a week. I never got any better, never got any faster, never liked it anymore. And then I started running longer distances. But in my head, I remember I used to have another podcast for developers called Get Up and Coded. I would say, there's no way I could ever run a marathon. I'm like, I'm not built for it. I'm about 260 pounds now, but I was like 230.
Go ahead, sorry.
And I got up to the point where I started running these close to half marathons. So I ran this half marathon. And then once I ran the half marathon, I was like, I bet I could run a marathon. It's even though at the end of the finish line, I was like, I'd have to double this. I'd be only halfway done. But, I started training for it, and everyone thought I was crazy because I was at the point, 220, 230 pounds. Like, that's not a typical marathoner. But I did it. I got to the point I've run 6 marathons. And then last year I was like, I'm either going to quit running or I'm going to run an ultra. And so I started training for 100 mile. I ended up running a 50. All the races got canceled last year, but I ended up running. And then I got sick and didn't quite make it to the 100. But I ran a 50 solo around the bay where I was, because the race got canceled. So I just ran it anyway. And that's I got to tell you, I mean, I feel like what you're saying, when I ran the marathons, there wasn't that. It was only when I got to the ultra distance that what you're describing, where it's like you crash completely down, but then you come back up, and that's just. I think that's the addicting. I want to get back there again. It almost feels like I want to go and try it again because I want to get that experience.
Man, I feel you in every single word you said. If 10, 11 years ago, before I started running, you told me I was going to run a marathon, I would have said, forget it. I had zero interest in running a marathon, and I had zero. I think that I didn't think I would have been capable of it just because, I ran a little bit when I was in middle school, first year of high school, some cross country and track and field, because they had to do, we had to do it for PE. Right. But, it was something I haven't done in years and years. And so to me saying, okay, running a marathon, why would I do that? But then, you know, ultra running, it's almost like a completely different discipline. We're talking a completely different language. And this is why I think the sport is growing so much, like almost exponentially, is because I think people are starting to take it more as an adventure, as an experience rather than a race. You know, you don't race people, you don't race the clock. In ultras, you're just challenging yourself. It's I call it, I very much call it like a spiritual journey, because it's a very much introspective. You really break through all the barriers. You confront yourself in the rawest of conditions, and that to me, it's very powerful, because especially in the time that we live nowadays in our society, running makes no sense. You know, we can move much faster and much more comfortable with scooters, cars, planes, trains, whatever. But, and also, you know, the comfortable lifestyle doesn't allow us to tap into ourselves. Because we're always just in a comfort zone. So it makes no sense why would you put yourself in an uncomfortable situation? Here is the understanding that when you put yourself in a comfortable situation, that's when you begin to develop yourself. You begin to grow. You begin to discover your strength, your skills, and also your perseverance to keep going. And so all these things are lessons that you bring back with you. And I find it fascinating that they can apply not just to ultra running, but to any endeavor in life. So when you do cross the finish line, doesn't matter if you're first or last, it doesn't matter. In ultra running, that's the beauty of it, I think. You know, the first is clapped as much as the last one. Sorry, the last one is clapped as much as the first one. It's almost like a party. Everybody's invited. And, you know, that transcends a bit of the mean competitiveness of many other races. But in that power, you know, there's camaraderie. There's so many ingredients to the recipe. But the one thing that really resonates with me is the fact that once you cross the finish line, you have reached a stage where you are fully in touch with yourself, with your inner self. And it's almost like a fire inside of you has been lit that can never die out. You know the challenges you were able to overcome. You push yourself through what you thought was impossible. And so just bringing those lessons learned on the field to everyday life, it just amplifies your experience, because ultimately you're not scared of anything else. You know, you are resilient. You know, you can do whatever you set your mind to. And that's as inspiring and empowering as it can get.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I love that you called it a spiritual journey, because it's so true. It's like I always think of, it's like when you're in really hard times, that's when you find out who you truly are. You know, I tell people now, I'm like, if you want to figure out who you are, run 50 miles. You will know exactly who you are, because when everything's great, you can be, it's easy to put on a show and pretend, but you find out really how bad of a person, like how annoyed you are, how less patient you are, how weak you are, how lazy you are. You know what I mean? But it's also, like you said, the chance to work on it and grow. It's like, that's where you can remold yourself, is what you decide to do in those moments when you're at your weakest. That shapes who you become for the rest of your life. And it's crazy. It's like, you know, you go through this and you become a better person. And just like how those can people annoy you?
They're defining moments. They're defining moments that you allow yourself to stretch beyond your safety bubble. And that's where you begin to not only discover nature and the world outside, because, you know, that's a physical movement that we're doing, it's a physical action, but you're also stretching your personal inner boundaries. And that's where I see the purpose in ultra running. It's an endless path to self-development and growth. It's a path to evolution, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And it's crazy, because even like I noticed when I started running marathons and in the ultra and really pushing myself, my patience with other people just became so much, because I'm like, if I can endure this, then whatever you can throw at me, like, it's like nothing. Everything is small stuff. It's all small stuff compared to like that. You know what I mean? So
that's totally right, man. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, they shouldn't send people to anger management classes. They should send them to
Just
ultra
go out
running.
and run long, just keep going. You'll know when you're done.
Now, how about you with your training? Did you, well, okay, so two questions. So first, how did you get started? So you read the book, and then did you just immediately say, I'm going to start running ultras? Were you already running some kind of running schedule? Did you do marathons first? What was your, what was your progression?
Yeah, in those years, especially when I was modeling, I was, of course, very, very focused on physical, shape. So fitness in general. Of course, I was, especially for the type of modeling I did, I was one of those, cut beef guys. So I was like, not necessarily heavy, because I started from about 190 pounds, and then throughout, as you climb the ladder towards high fashion, it's sizes shrink.
Yeah.
So I dropped down to about 175 pounds, but I was very, very lean and, pretty bulky still.
Yeah.
And my runs, I did some mostly like warm up runs, usually on a treadmill, like maybe a couple of miles just to, before my gym session. So I cannot say I was a runner. Then all of a sudden I discovered ultra marathon man, and, he opened up this whole new world. And I'm like, now I have to actually, if I want to run one of these races, I really have to, change my regimen, my training routine, and focus more on this on a structured way. I knew anybody who ran ultra marathons. I knew anyone. I knew nobody that ran marathons. And so I'm like, where am I going to start? And, I dove on the internet, and I started picking at people's blogs and documentaries and, everything I could find, until I landed on this blog by Anton Krupichka, which was called Riding the Wind. I don't know. I'm sure you, as an ultra runner, you might know Anton Krupichka. I mean, he's a legend in our sport, in trail running. And at the time, he was like the image, especially for the position where I was. I lived in the city. I was looking for adventure. I was looking for, a breath of fresh air. And he represented all of that. He represented that freedom. He was this guy, skinny guy, long hair, long beard, running shirtless up in the Colorado Rockies. And he was logging like 180, 200 miles a week up and down the Rockies. So I was like, this guy, and, he won some of the biggest races. He won Leadville 3 times. He finished second at Western States. He's like a huge inspiration at that time. And so I was like, of course, doesn't quite make sense, but it did to me at the time. I'm like, if he trains like this and he's good, if I train like that, probably I'll be good too. So I dove in. Yeah. It's like a formula, right? If he does that and the outcome is this, then if I do that as well, hopefully it'll be the same.
Yeah.
The problem is, I started from about maybe 15 miles a week of my training, and he ran 140, 160, 180 regularly, weekly. So it was a big gap. I couldn't dive in. So slowly, I started ramping up, somewhat recklessly, because, I went through all sort of injuries and inflammations and setbacks, but I was so driven that every day I would still lace my shoes up and head out of the door. Didn't matter if my Achilles was on fire, my plantar was locked, my knees were hurting, my hips, my back, everything. Because of course it was a complete adaptation I had to redo to my body. I went from a gym buff guy to shredding almost 30 pounds, in a matter of 6 months.
Yeah. Wow.
So, I started training at the beginning of January, and on May 13th, so just about 5 months later, I towed the line to my first race, which
how many months later?
Less than 5 months.
Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy.
And my first race was a 100 miler.
What?
Yeah.
Wow. That is
So
insane.
as I say, recklessly, I was like,
Yeah.
but I was so
Yeah.
fascinated by this concept of ultra running that I didn't care about marathons
And did you finish
or
that first
half.
100?
Well, do you want me to dive into it real
Uh,
quick?
yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, this is very
It's a
entertaining. Yeah.
very funny story, actually. I gotta
Okay.
tell you. So I told the line. I had no idea of anything. I just
Right.
trained. I hit the 140 mile a week, just 2 weeks prior. So I was able to build to that big,
Yeah.
block. And I showed up at the line down in the race was the Keys 100, so down from Key Largo to Key West, south of
Oh,
Miami.
okay. Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
trained all winter in New York to train to race down in the tropics, right?
In the
Makes total
humidity.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was insane. 100% humidity. It was
Oh
disgusting.
God.
It was
Oh God.
disgusting. But
Yeah.
what happened there is, I just told the line. I went there with my short shorts, no shirt, a handheld
Oh
bottle,
no.
and I'm like, I'm here to run. Let's do it. I didn't know anything about nutrition. I knew anything about hydration,
Oh no.
electrolytes, all of that stuff. So I just went there to run.
Yeah.
So, I get on and I start seeing, there was a pretty decent level field that day. There was like some people from the 24-hour national teams, like was a former Bedwater winner, all of these people. And I'm like, I never run a race. So I'm going to stay behind some of these guys that I know, and I'm going to keep up for as long as I can.
Okay.
So, the first marathon goes by and I was maybe in the top 10, 20,
Wow.
which was okay.
Yeah.
But then, oddly enough, I realized that I was actually able to keep the pace for that prolonged period of time. And that was like a discovery for myself. And so I get to the 50-mile mark, I was in second place.
Wow.
And so I'm like, okay, I think I can do this.
Now, hold on. Now, when you're at 50-mile mark at this race, did you have like any nutrition? I mean, you must have had at least like a Camelback or something.
Yeah, no, I had my family, which actually flew from Italy to support me. So I was drinking water, and maybe every now and then I had a Snicker bar here, a Cliff bar there. So I was like eating just whatever. It wasn't like a time regimented structure, which is what needs to be done in ultras.
Right.
And so I get to the 50-mile mark. I'm like, I take off my shoes. My feet are disgusting. My mom almost fainted when she saw them. They were like blisters on top of blisters, underneath nails on top, underneath. But I was like, and that was due to water retention, due to dehydration.
Yeah.
I didn't replace any salts, so I wasn't able to. It was a mess. Yeah. Still, I was very committed to finish, so I just put my shoes back on and I ran on those blisters until they all popped again. So I was able to, release some of the pressure. So blisters were popping as I was running. Didn't take care of them, just kept running. So I keep plowing along. I keep, grinding it out, head down. I'm like, all I have to do is reach the finish line. I only have, I'm halfway through, I can do it. So we get through this very tough section, which is the 7-mile bridge, where the people pass out. There's people that collapse over there because you have 7 miles where you don't have access to your crew. So you have to bring extra water with you, and it's in the heat of the day. It's right in the hottest time of the day. At that point, I started feeling completely like nauseous and, didn't feel well. Thankfully, one of the support vehicles of another runner that was buzzing by, they gave me a few electrolytes.
Yeah, you need salt
and that was like, it brought me back to life. It was like you know what I mean? It was like I shot coffee in my veins. I was like, this is amazing. So it gave me like a good boost, and I picked up the running in front of me. And then I found, at the next checkpoint, they told me I was in first place.
What? That's
so I'm
crazy.
like, this is crazy. So I'm like, okay, well, just keep going. You got, like, let's do it. So it was almost like a self-motivating factor.
Oh yeah, at that point, yeah.
So I just keep pushing. It's starting to get dark. And he were talking about like 80 something, 84 miles, about 84 miles into the race. I've been in the lead for a while, but I feel like I'm dying out. I'm totally, my energy levels are dropping. I have no more electrolytes. I don't know what to do. I just keep pushing until it's lights out.
Oh, wow.
So I literally passed out, face plant. I wake up in a puddle of vomit. My dad trying to pull my tongue out of my throat, because that happens when you pass out in those conditions. He was trying to pull my tongue out, and they load me up in an ambulance. They stick an IV in my arm, and I'm laying there completely destroyed, completely depleted. Like I can't even lift a toe. And I see my mom, my sister, and my now girlfriend, Lauren, crying outside the ambulance, and they all begging me never to do it again.
Do it again.
And of course, that's where we started.
Right. Wow. What, do you know what mile you're at? Were you passed out? Or?
84 exactly.
Gosh, to be in the lead. Imagine if you had proper nutrition, you would have won your very first race. That's insane.
Man, it was like that was the turning point. That was the understanding that with better practice, with better knowledge, I could have done better. I could have won, as you say, So with that understanding, I licked my wounds for months and months. It took me forever to get back on my feet, because I literally destroyed myself. And 6 months later, I told the line to my first 50 miler this time. So I was like, maybe let me re-aim a little bit, reset the target. And I actually won that race. So then, that gave me another boost to understand that I was on the right path, and that if I committed myself, I could have done well in this sport. And so that conviction allowed me to keep turning the page and keep, climbing the ladder to bettering myself and pursue this passion, career, whatever we want to call it.
Now, where did the mental toughness come from? Because I mean, and this is pretty rare. We have somewhat similar backgrounds. I started off in modeling too, way back when, I big guy that got into running.
Yep.
But the mental toughness, because and I did the party lifestyle for a while too. And it's like, it's a totally different thing, when you're going out and you're partying, and, it's like, you're just,
you don't require any effort.
You wake up at noon every day, if and then you just go and drink some more and party some more. And to go from that to, I mean, regardless of what people say about genetics and whatnot, I mean, to run with fucking blisters on top of blisters, like on your first race, and you go through that, like there had to be something that changed in you, or switched, or maybe you turned off your mental toughness for some period of time, but brought it back. What was it? Where did that mental toughness come from?
I think it's a bit of a mix of who I am inside and how I was raised. So I think that, I come from I'm very fortunate to say that I come from a good family, in the sense of, I have parents. I have a wonderful relationship with my parents, and they raised both my sister and I in a way that, nothing was given,
right?
But there was always, support behind all our choices. And so I think that a little bit of guidance from them, but also I gotta start, maybe take a step back. One of the most inspirational people in my life is my father, as cliche as it may sound. He comes from very humble beginnings. He comes from a very poor family. He was sent out to work when he graduated middle school. So he didn't even have high school diplomas. He went into the he went working when he was 12, 13 years old, because the family needed his help. And he's a man that basically built himself up. He was able to learn 3-4 languages. He was able to transcend his circumstances, and he was able to create a career, business for himself, and offer an incredible life to his family. So that strength always inspired me. because
Okay.
he came from nothing and was able to create something amazing. And so he always resonated with me saying, okay, I already starting from here. What can I do?
All right.
So my mindset has always been, in a way, inspired by his resilience and belief for something greater than yourself. And so, to me, that those years in modeling, they were just almost like a sidetrack, a little like, it wasn't the reason why I didn't enjoy, or necessarily not enjoy, but I didn't recognize myself in those years is because it wasn't how I was raised. I wasn't living up to my values.
Right.
And that's what really touched me deeply inside. That's why I really needed that change. And ultra running offered me that change, offered the opportunity to rediscover those values, to rediscover my voice, and to pursue my passion. Because ultimately, ultra running is a journey of growth, a journey of self-discovery, but it's also a journey towards constant purpose and fulfillment. Because every single day, what is the purpose? The purpose is not winning races. The purpose is getting out before dawn with the understanding that you're doing something for yourself. You're pushing your limits a bit further. So every single day, you know what you're doing. It's not just gliding through and making it through the end of the week or making it through the end of the month or whatever. I'll be happy when summer comes. I'll be happy when this happens. No, I'm happy every single day because I'm doing what I love. I wake up with purpose. I wake up with intent. I am actualizing myself at the highest level. And I think there's nothing greater for a man to do in life than that.
Yeah, I couldn't say it better. That is just exactly 100%. I agree with you. That's amazing. Yeah, it's so important. I think, so many people get lost and they don't realize that, the best satisfaction, the greatest fulfillment that you'll ever get in life is from a job well done.
Yeah, totally.
So
I think that, the lesson there is that transcending the societal scheme and societal patterns, we are raised with an image of success that we have to pursue in life. For the moment you go to school, you're raised, you want a career, you want a good job, a high-paying job, so you can have a nice car, so you can impress all the people around you that mostly you don't care about, but you still do it. And I think our drive is set outward.
Right.
This drive is set towards external things, material things. But I think that ultimately at one point in our lives, we realize that those material things don't matter anything. Right. I mean, of course, it will be naive to say that money doesn't matter, because of course he offers an amazing life and opportunities, but it shouldn't be the driving force. It's just the result. Like if you do what you love with passion and you dedicate yourself wholeheartedly, success and money will follow. You don't need to worry about it.
Yeah.
And so there's a switch. You're not working towards acquiring something, you're working to develop yourself, and that something will chase you.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Your external is always a reflection of your internal. And it's crazy. It's like, I mean, and the Stoics had a thing where they used to say that, I'm really big into Stoic philosophy.
Yep.
This idea that, the only thing you really have is what would remain if everything was taken from you, if everything burned up in a fire. That's what you own. That's what you really have.
Yep.
And that's why it's like doing things like this. That's, I was telling someone the other day, I was like, no matter what ever happens in my life, no one can ever take away from me that I ran 50 miles or that I did that thing, because that's something that can never be taken. But money can be taken, your looks, your health, all those things can be taken. But that, like, who you are and what you've built yourself, that's forever. So
couldn't agree more.
So with your training, I'm curious too. So it sounds like at first you didn't have a coach. I mean, and it's kind of interesting. Like I think it's obviously, like you're saying, like you shouldn't maybe just go and follow someone else and run 140 miles because they're running 140 miles.
But I wouldn't recommend that to anyone.
but the logic works. But I love the approach, because it's like, well, if this guy's doing this and I want to achieve what he's achieving, then I just need to do what he's doing. And it kind of worked, because your first race, you were basically like, first place. I mean, it's probably not the best approach, but just the mindset of saying, well, look, if this guy's making a lot of money, then if I start working like him or start doing what he's doing, like, I think that approach, even if it's not like the optimal way to train for running, it's such a great, thing that, like, because anyone, I think, that has that mindset could do anything that they want. They just have to say, well, if someone else is doing it, if I do what they're doing, then I'm at least, maybe you're not going to be as good, but you're at least going to get close. I think that's the thing. But with you, so obviously when you start out, you didn't have a coach, because he wouldn't let you do that. Do you have a coach now? Do you train yourself? Like when you train for the bad water, did you have a coach, or did you just do that yourself? How did that work?
So I went through a bit of a journey here, because when I first had that horrible initial experience, I realized I needed to widen my knowledge. So I started studying. I took my certifications as a sports, as a running coach and sports nutritionist through the USA Track and Field Association. Yeah. So I started there. Then I got my personal training certification. Excuse me. All of this to kind of widen my understanding of how the physiology of the body works. The training, the stress, the rest, the nutrition, and everything that goes with it. So it was very much a journey of trial and error as well. So I was starting to kind of experimenting new approaches and new ways of training and nourish my body. And so I started going through all of this, and I found it extremely fascinating, though it was, I would say, exhausting, because a lot of times, the setback, when it goes well, it's great. You keep what works. When it doesn't go well, you need to understand what didn't go well and when you need to readjust. So this became almost like a personal journey again, a personal journey within the personal journey. And I found it extremely fascinating. I started getting, better and better results throughout the years. The first 2-3 years of ultra running, I was completely training myself, and I was doing all this trial and error type of things. And until I finally landed my first sponsors, then I turned into, pro, if you want to call it that way, in the sport. And that's when I was like, okay, maybe now I do need a runner. I mean, I do need a coach.
Right.
And so I hired a high-end coach, and, it was pretty odd to say those couple of years I was with the coach were the worst in my career.
Really? Wow. Okay. That's interesting.
I think because in many ways I disconnected from the roots of why I was doing what I was doing.
Yeah.
I almost saw it as a inner journey, a personal journey, and having to rely to someone, and it was something that kind of brought focus away from what I was doing. And for whatever reason, that just didn't work. So fast forward to 2017, 2018, I decided to drop the coach and get back to my own guidance.
Yeah.
And 2018, went back to Badwater. That year I had like a couple of wins before going in, then one Badwater. So at that point I was like, yeah, I probably better just keep doing what I'm doing and, figure it out as I go. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. And so what does your training look like right now? Do you to prepare for this Badwater, what's your mileage going to look like, or
well, I think that one of the most important things to understand in training is periodization. Mm-hmm. That's like the first, I would say that's the stepping stone, the base of everything you're doing. If you cannot grind it hard all the time.
Right.
You cannot, excuse me, no pun intended, but you cannot stay hard all the time. Right. You have to have those times where you let the body recover. Yeah. Not just daily, not just weekly, not just monthly, but yearly. So when you come down to preparing for a race, I usually make a yearly plan. Yeah. So let's say Badwater is going to be my first big race of the year, though I have Tahoe 200 in September, and then I'm doing a big project in the fall, which perhaps we'll talk about a little further down the line. So for these type of events, I already started training in December.
Yeah.
So, after Moab, I needed some time off to let my body rest, to recover, not just physically, but also hormonally, metabolically, mentally, psychologically. There are so many factors that come into it. So when I picked up my training again towards the end of December, I was somewhat rejuvenated, ready to tackle again, the new thing. So, from there, I start from a base that usually my base is about 50, 60, 70 miles a week.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I ramp up gradually, about 10% every week. But then even in those months of growth, there are 2-3 weeks where I gradually increase, but then I have 1 or 2 weeks where I taper down a little bit. Yeah, so it's almost like going up a little bit, dropping a little bit, going up a little bit, dropping a little bit. And these moments allow the stress of training to kick in, and then the rest to allow you to improve and get better and get stronger and get more resilient and get faster and all those things that happen. So as of right now, I actually finished a very, very intense block of training this past week. I was averaging about 150 miles a week with about 35,000 feet of elevation change. Wow. So I've been putting in the work, that's for sure. And I'm looking up ahead of, I hope, a very exciting season.
Yeah, well, I'll definitely be following it closely. That's crazy. That's awesome.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Well, let's see. And so before we wrap up here, the book. So you have a book coming out.
Yep.
It's not available for pre-order on Amazon yet, right? But it's going to be called Ultra Top Model to Top Ultra Runner, right?
Correct. Yeah. It's going to be available for pre-order probably within the next 10 days or less. Okay. I would say just over a week. The book is launching on June 22nd. So we're just over a couple of weeks away. And yeah, it's been, I got to tell you, even this has been a pretty incredible journey. I initially published this book in Italy a few years ago with a famous Italian writer. And it was like, almost like I felt like I went to the shrink. I just opened up to him about all of these experiences. Right now we kind of, cover the surface, but with him we went a bit more in the depths of these experiences and the lessons that I learned throughout. So it was very much like opening up about very personal stuff, and it was very like transforming in many ways, because a lot of times, especially things that bring us trauma, we kind of push down or avoid. Here, I had to confront it. I had to kind of bring it back on the table, open it up, and break it down piece by piece. And that allowed me a lot, allowed me to really kind of reconnect with those moments and learn from them instead of avoiding them. Because there were, a lot of these situations that were they were borderline traumatic at many levels. And so, having that opportunity was absolutely fantastic. And now this adaptation, there are a few changes here and there, and there's a little additions, but I'm very happy with this launch. And I think our culture will understand it even better.
Awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to read it. I'm definitely going to pre-order as soon as, I guess probably I'll tell the guys to follow. Well, I've got the Instagram up here.
Yep.
Hold on. Where's your Instagram? Right. No, this is,
I put it right there in the comments, the private chat.
Oh, here we go. We've got it here too. So, and I'll drop it in the regular chat here. So guys, follow
Mickey.
Mickey on Instagram, and then I'm assuming you'll announce it there, and then the website is right.
It's my name and last name.com. Yeah, Michele Graglia.
Yeah, I'm never gonna be able to.
Yeah, I know
That's
that's why I go with Mickey. Usually I
Mickey,
go with
yeah.
Mickey. It's much easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I studied Italian too. I'm part Italian, so but
Oh, really? Nice.
yeah, I did the Pimsleur, the audio. It didn't really work. I need to like do a real immersion type of,
Yeah.
but
Totally. I get it.
okay. And then one last thing, I think and then I'll let you go here. Appreciate you being on here. This is one of the my favorite interviews. If you've got, for people that are listening, they're watching this, they sometimes they see us and they're like, oh, well, these guys, yeah, they can do this and run ultras and whatever, what do you say to the person that's sitting there and saying, oh, I could never do that. I could never run a marathon. I could never run an ultra. Like, you have to be genetically gifted. You have to, whatever, what do you say to that person that thinks that it's not even something that they could even do?
Yeah. Well, I would start saying that. Oh, let me say this first. I always, as we heard it probably many times, and as cliche as it may sound, there's a phrase that really resonates with me often, and is "Stay hungry, stay foolish." We heard it times, right, by Steve Jobs, but I think that that really embodies the message of transcending ourselves. It's about setting higher goals for ourselves and believing that we can do it. The journey in ultra running allowed me to understand that we're all capable of a lot more than what we think we can. So that already transcends those limitations and allow us to pursue bigger dreams, because we do have dreams. All of us have bigger dreams, but too often we are too afraid of going for it. We lack courage because we feel like we're not strong enough, smart enough, capable enough to achieve it. And so our faith begins to die out, and we don't even take the first step. We don't even give ourselves that opportunity. But I think it's absolutely necessary to take that first step, transcend our circumstances, because we all come from whatever setbacks and situations in life where we think it's not the perfect moment. I'm not talented for this. I'm not that. But again, I think it's necessary to transcend all the circumstances, believe in ourselves, and allow ourselves to live incredible experiences and catch every opportunity that comes.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, I couldn't agree more. I really appreciate you coming on, and
it's been a real pleasure.
Yeah. I wish you the best with your upcoming races, and I'll be looking forward to reading your book. And yeah,
likewise to you. Hopefully we'll connect to some of those races, and we'll get a chance to share some miles together.
All right. Take care.
Thank you so much.